Hello everyone and welcome to some Grand Archive news. Today we are going to be going over the Content Creator League being held currently in Mortal Ambition, and I'm joined with a very special field reporter. I have Brytwing with me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you out here on this channel and especially on the news. So, what we're going to be doing here is just covering the round one of the Content Creator League that did occur over the past couple of weeks. We're going to be taking a look at some of the players participating in this league, along with what they ended up playing, and hear some insight from an expert Grand Archive player like yourself.
Oh boy, I'm the expert in the house.
You are. That is why we brought you here. For those of you not familiar with Brytwing, let's have Brytwing sort of explain a little bit about themselves and some of their favorite things of Grand Archive.
Yeah, certainly. My name is Brightwing. I've been playing since before launch, and my favorite thing about the Grand Archive is just going to all the ascents. Currently, only missed a few, and they're a lot of fun. So if you ever are heading to one of the ascents, make sure to stop by and say hi, because I'll probably be there.
That is true. He will be there. Along with that, Brightwing also just topped in Ascent Singapore, hitting top 32, which was super cool. Really
Yeah.
nice to have that kind of player capacity on the news channel here today. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the players in the league. We're going to be starting with none other than Main Deck Taylor. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with this player. However, they are part of the Main Deck crew ran by Dan, and they seem to have a really good reputation in top end tournaments.
Yeah, Main Deck Killer is a fierce competitor. I have seen him at multiple events, and he is always at those top tables. He's crushing it recently. I see him on Merlin quite often. He's personally destroyed me on Merlin multiple times, but he is a very flexible and very competitive player. So no surprise that he's doing well so far in this event.
Perfect. Yeah, we do see a round one win with a Water Diana list. And so for the league itself, we told everyone we want to play lists that aren't going to be super popular, that you're not going to be seeing people taking to a sense a lot of the times. We want to give the spotlight to some cards that normally won't be able to shine. And Main Deck Taylor did a really good job. If those of you who haven't seen that video, go ahead and check it out. It is uploaded on Rav channel, and I believe Main Deck will also be uploading their variant of it as well. And it is really cool to see that deck in action. Now, in the bottom of these player boards, we do see the favorite champion card and element of these players. They were all interviewed pre entering in this league, and we got that information from them. And I just want to hear your opinion, Brightwing, on what you think about the three favorites of Main Deck Taylor.
Well, yeah, you could definitely tell that he's a veteran player due to that Spirit Blade infusion and the Wake Up Dungeon Guide glitch. So you can definitely tell that he's a veteran player. And honestly, it's not too surprising based off of what we've seen him have at some of the events. Lorraine being a very, very good champion. Um, like a fan favorite for the most part for everybody who's been playing the game for a while. Yeah, everything seems right on par with Taylor.
Awesome. Sounds good there. Yeah, Lorraine is sort of like the first love for a lot of Grand Archive players. That's the first
Indeed.
champion. One thing that is going to be surprising to note, and as we go through the list, you'll also see it. Favorite element is water. Water notoriously was not strong in the first set, maybe two sets of Grand Archive. So the fact that we see a favorite element being water after multiple sets in really shows that it's not about whether it's good or not. It's whether, the player just enjoys the play style.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And then after Taylor, we have someone that might seem kind of familiar to those of you watching and to you, Brightwing, as well. You probably know them. We have Chess Club's own Null. And
No.
super happy to have this player in our league. We do unfortunately see a loss on round one with that Water Kong Ming, but they did bring the spice, and that shifting currents was spinning. If you did
It
watch that
was.
video,
We we got Kong Ming with a dragon. Everyone wanted to see it, and Null made it happen.
it did. I believe Null was against Byfall, which we will get to their deck they were playing. It was sort of a rough matchup, but really cool to see both decks doing what they wanted to do. Now, touching base on their favorites, we do see a Xander, and I feel like Xander being a favorite champion for Chess Club is kind of like their staple, right?
It is fitting. Yes, they're basically the ones that invented the Luxemsander deck that we know and love today. Shout out Pickle, but yeah, that is pretty on par. Same with Slay the King. That card was used during Ascent Houston. Chess Club's team had that in their Merlin, and it was quite spicy. They would bring out, Tithe Proclamation or whatever they needed at that time. So seeing that is pretty on par. I am a little surprised on the water for Noel. I didn't expect that to be his favorite element, but I know that he always tries to bring in Fracturize in the side, so it's not too terribly surprising.
Yeah, more of a utility favorite kind of element. Like it because of
Yeah.
all the options that can bring out. Plus, with the new UR Divine Relic we have in Mortal Ambition, you can run any element of card you want in any deck.
Yeah, in his list in Toronto, he actually ended up having that in the sideboard along with Fracturize in order to stop those Nikos.
That's actually a super smart play. I love it. Now, as much as we've talked about those two last players, we got to move on to our third player. This might be a player that you have been very familiar with. You may even be part of their team. We have none other than Rarevin. Round one loss on the Water Sylvie Nico, and I do want to ask you specifically about this deck because it is a deck that you were also playing during Toronto. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, this one had a little bit of tweaks to kind of make it more, less meta friendly. But this list is so much fun to play. It's my personal favorite list going into Mortal Ambition. It has so much utility with that Sylvie level 1, and then if you need it, you have that Nico top end to close out games. So this list is a ton of fun, and I'm glad that Rav brought it to this event.
Awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, it did fall short in a best of three against the Water Diana list main deck Taylor was running, but it's still an amazing match to go watch there. Now, favorite champion card and elements. This sort of seems like a clean sweep across the board.
Yeah, if you know anything about Rav, you know that he loves his Rye. He is trying to make Rye work every single season, so it's not surprising at all that we see Arcane Rye and Arcane Blast.
And then just to end it all, Arcane, just the best element.
Arcane.
Perfect there. Awesome. Now, this next player here, I'm not sure how much we'll talk about them. We'll maybe be a little bit of objective, but we do have
This
Valkyrie.
guy.
So I'm also participating in the league as well, just for a little bit of fun. And I took a round one loss on Jin Wind Horses.
Yeah, your list caught me off surprise. I believe I even DM'd you a rule thing. I was like, "Oh, hey, you attacked with Dilu and you weren't supposed to." And then I looked at the board and I was like, "No, you're just also playing Sylvie cards." So that was fun to see. And then with your favorites, it's not also too surprising as well. You have been playing Insol for a very long time, and you have been playing Water for even longer, topping Houston with Water. One of the few players who was able to do that to top Ascent Houston with it on Lorraine, in fact. So not too surprising there either.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I do appreciate that. All three of those are sort of classics and staples of this channel, and it's sort of a identity, but super happy that that's recognizable. I am really happy the Wind Horses deck actually worked out the way I wanted it to. Because the whole concept I was like, I really want to get Dilu to work, but I just don't want to run Wind unique allies because it's too close to the Oath of Sakura deck. So I was like, I'll
Yeah.
do everything I can. Boom. And it ended up working. Please go watch that video. It is uploaded on my channel, and that was against Once in Love, who we'll be getting to shortly. Now, we have the privilege of having Byfall in the league as well. And this was the Wind Sylvie deck that ended up beating Noel's Kongming. And this deck was amazing to watch. It was so much fun.
This deck was my personal favorite watching in this league. He got those cats with so many buff counters. There was nothing anyone could do about it. I think he had at one point like 5 or 6 buff counters on the cat, and it's just like, yeah, this thing is swinging in for 6 or 7 damage every turn.
Yeah, it's with the use of squirrels, reclaims, asins. There's just too many things going on, and those cats were buff. Now, the favorite champions card and element caught me by surprise because I've always associated this player with Rye and Arcane.
Yeah, Bifal has been a big arcane player during the early days of DOA and FTC, but he's really switched over to Water Earth in the last couple of sets. He's been playing Water Merlin quite often, and so the Lost in Thoughts fits really well into that deck. So it's not too surprising on that fact, just based off the switch, but he was for sure a Rye player early days.
Yeah, and we do see the favorite champions had to get Kongming and Rai there, just sort of like a fan of mages, I would like to say,
Mhm.
by seeing those two. And mind you, Kongming did not come out at this point. This league was created and players were interviewed like weeks before the set actually released. So Byfall immediately saying, no, I'm going to like this champion and getting that locked in there, which is super cool to see. And then moving on to our last but not least player here, we have Once in Love. Super happy to have Once in our league. I ended up playing against them round one, and they brought the Wind Jin, top and Exia. Super cool deck to see. They had really cool combos in it and different kind of strategies that they were implementing. Unfortunately, they were didn't get to show off too much because the aggro ally pressure kind of put them in a corner. However, hopefully, if they do bring it back, you can see more of what that deck can do late game.
Once in Love is also a very prominent member of the community. He's known for casting and running some of the ascents and helping out. And so seeing his favorites here is also not too surprising. Kind of a throwback to that DOA. As you can see, Lorraine is quite a popular character back in those days. And Spirit Blade Ascension doing those fun loops like your Drawn Blade and your Prismatic Edge, that sort of thing. So seeing Crux is fine. Not too surprising here.
Yeah, I don't want to call us boomers, but it feels like the six participants we do have in this league right now are GA boomers. Their favorite champions are Lorraine or Rai, and they all like Crux
Yeah.
cards and water. But yeah, it's really cool to see that depending on when you got into Grand Archive, you sort of like a different champion or card in that time period, sort of like cementing you there. But I believe 4 out of the 6 players said water was their favorite element. 4 out of 6 players put Lorraine. Oh no, 3 out of 6 put Lorraine as their favorite champion, and I think 3 out of 6 have Crux cards as their favorite card. But yeah, so with that being said, we've gone over all the players. We've gone over the first 3 matches, and I want to turn this question to you. Who do you think is going to be bringing the same deck for the next round, and who do you think is going to be bringing something new?
Interesting question. Well, it's hard to say for sure. I imagine that a lot of the round one winners will probably try to keep the same deck, just because if it worked the first time, it'll probably work again. But it's really hard to say. A lot of the decks are really cool, so it depends on how they were feeling about their decks and how spicy they think it was versus how spicy they think it could be. But I imagine Byfall will probably stick on the cat decks. Just try to stack those buff counters on, and that is his win condition. And then I imagine that Once in Love will probably stick on his as well. Just like you said, he wasn't really able to show it off due to the aggro pressure. So he might be wanting to show that Exia top end versus just having to rush down your opponent. I do imagine that some of the players who didn't perform as well, like Noel on his his Mage Kongming deck, might end up switching up into something a little bit spicier or a little bit more competitive.
And do you think that's going to create sort of a metagame within the league itself of people just like, if you're staying on that deck, I'm probably going to be, maybe building something to counter it a little bit? Because
Yeah, it's certainly possible for that to happen. Yeah.
perfect,
Yeah,
yeah.
one thing I personally want to see is somebody on Luxem Animals. Let's make it happen.
Let's, I don't want to ruin the tech, but originally that was the deck I was bringing. I was bringing in Rancher Xander, and
Yeah,
after
here's that.
play testing it, I'm like, oh, this is absolutely not working. I'm just gonna switch over to Jin real quick and make it a little bit more viable. But yeah, no, I really want someone to bring that. I think that's super cool. Are there any cards specifically in Mortal Ambition that you want to see decks built with?
Other than Luxem Animals,
Yeah.
uh, no specific cards. I pretty much saw all the fun decks that everyone was, or at least that I was thinking about wanting to play in sort of fun settings like Kongming with the dragon, the big cat deck, all of those sort of things. So for the most part, I feel like there's a good spread here of all the fun decks that people were wanting to play but maybe didn't get the chance. So we even saw Diana with a bow, which everyone saw those bow cards and said, "Oh, how do we use those?" And they've also been used in Sylvie. But it was really cool to see Diana with a bow. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that is really cool to see. Now, thank you very much, Brightwing, for joining us, going over this round one. But we have one last thing to show you here, and that is going to be the pairings for round two. That's happening, actually just started this week. So let's go ahead and take a look at that here, and tell me your thoughts on these matchups.
Yeah, these matchups will be pretty interesting if they stick on the same deck. We'll just start from the top here, Rav versus Byfall. This matchup is interesting, assuming they're staying on the same deck, because that Sylvie Nico list kind of struggles into allies. So if Byfall can build up his cats large enough, it is just going to stomp on over Sylvie Nico. So I think in a case like this, Rav will probably want to look at this matchup and then try to build a deck slightly different,
Mhm.
as to not, even if he's using the same deck, just run different cards in it, possibly like Torrential Blast or something along those lines to deal with those big body allies.
Oh, that's actually really good insight there. That's where the counterpick and the strategy is coming in from. This is a very casual league. We are doing it for fun. The prize has yet to be announced. It is currently in the works. And everyone watching, at the end of round 2, you're going to be able to vote for a something about the league that will affect the players for round 3, 4, and 5. So make sure you watch the round recap for that coming out in at the end of round 2 after November 24th. Now, Null and Once in Love, all these players were given their pairings on November 5th. So everyone already knew who they were playing against before this video actually aired here. And I know both these players were talking about, should we play the same decks or should we switch? And they sort of shrugged at each other and we're not sure. So it's actually really interesting to see who is actually going to make that change, because both players have open knowledge of each other's deck now. The deck lists are public on the videos themselves, and so it's one of those like, do you stick with the deck you're playing because you actually really enjoy it and you just want to keep going it, or are you going to be like, secretly I'm going to try and win a little bit and get my record better, so when we go into the single elimination rounds, I have a better seed than my opponent.
Right, that's the name of the game. This round will be very interesting if they do decide to stay on the same, because Kongmi is much better in terms of matchups when it's not against a high pressure ally deck, like the cat deck. So this one will be fairly interesting against Exia Jin. Exia Jin's going for those big attacks that'll just end up, winning in one turn. There is some allies in that, but Kongming will have a lot of nice tools in order to prevent that. So we might actually see a Kongming shift win here, depending on if they stay on the same decks or not.
I'd love to see that. And then last matchup we have is myself, Valkyrie, against main deck Taylor. And I feel like I'm going to be fighting an uphill battle here.
It'll definitely be one to watch. Both very good players, both with ascent tops. We have, if they stay on the same deck list, we'll have Diana with a bow versus horses. So it'll be an interesting one to see for sure.
And I actually have some insider information just for you, everyone at home, and you, Brytwing. I'm actually going to be switching decks, and the deck strategy or hint I'll provide to everyone of what I'll be playing is I'm not playing any of the 3 basic elements.
Okay, all right. It's spicy. You got a lost list going on.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning into your Grand Archive News. I'm Valkyrie, and this is...
Brightwing.
And we appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful time, and happy GA.
Yeah.